Welcome back to the Torque Test channel. We have a very special treat for you guys today, the all-new Makita XGT 40-volt 3/4 inch impact wrench that came out within the last week to the US, going head-to-head versus the most established cordless 3/4 inch in the market, the Milwaukee M18. We're going to dyno test these two 3/4 inches and the M18 half inch versus 3/4 inch as well, then rank the new tools at the end of this episode. We're very excited to bring you this one. Should be good. Truth be told, while we've very much wanted to get our hands on the new 3/4 inch from Makita, unless someone decided to loan the channel one, we had no plans to purchase it ourselves, as well needing the new XGT batteries and charger makes this puppy cost a pretty penny, and the channel has definitely been purchasing some heavy hitters recently. Some you've seen and some to come. But when we recently launched our new T-Store, you guys have been absolutely killing it. In appreciation of that, since this new Makita GWT01Z debuted for sale in the US the same week as that, the stars sort of aligned and we knew just where to divert your dollars. And since it only seemed right for our Makita crowd watching, we also designed a new hand-drawn Teal Team Bolt Expectations t-shirt, now live in our shop. Our GWT01D kit came with two of their standard 2.5 amp hour 40 volt batteries, which are the same watt hours and cell types as the LXT 5.0 pack and XC 5.0 from Milwaukee, but sort of routed in series to create twice the voltage. And the charger, which while sort of loud like most of Makita chargers with its fan, definitely puts in some work, charging our new XGT pack in about half an hour. By doubling the voltage, Makita has effectively cut the nominal capacity of these packs in half to 2.5 hours from 5, but there are efficiencies in current delivery and current draw from the motor in a 40 volt system that they say does help make these tools last longer and run cooler than you'd assume otherwise just from looking at the numbers on the side. To that we're willing to say, okay, if you say so, but on this channel we're more interested in those beans. What kind of power delivery are you getting for your 40 volts that the new XGT 3/4 inch advertises? And it's showing 1,510 nut busting and 1,330 foot-pounds fastening. That's 2050 and 1800 in their native tongue of Newton meters. Those numbers are nothing to shrug at, and we'll have our shrugging shoulders ready if it doesn't deliver today. When our friend Jim at Philly Fix sent us the link to this, and you guys kept buying shirts and hoodies, we picked this kit up for a cool $600 from Max Tool, who proceeded to quickly sell out. There definitely seems to be some Makita fans in the States for sure, because $600 or even $400 for the bare tool is no entry-level endeavor. But when you think about it, this really is the first new high torque effort from the big three in most of a decade. People are really wanting to see something new, us included. The Milwaukee we'll also be testing today goes for a comparably reasonable $530 as a kit and $299 for the bare tool, with it often being seen for about $250 when you can find it for a deal, as it's not really a new tool by any standards. Despite not being this year's latest model, the M18 2864-20 also boasts some serious numbers: 1,500 nut busting and 1,200 foot-pounds fastening, which is 100 and 200 up from the numbers of the 2767 half inch, and a very close 10 foot-pounds down from the Makita, or 130 if you're looking at the fastening. This particular M18 3/4 inch was provided to us by a kind, vetted viewer, and now friend of the channel, Gary K. He reached out to us a while back wanting to know if we'd be interested in testing some 3/4 inch at some point, and we're glad we've made it there today, around 37 episodes in. Now, if you're saying to yourself, you can't compare a 40 volt tool versus an 18 volt tool, these are both being sold on effectively the same shelf at your local hardware store to someone walking in wanting to go the 3/4 inch route. And you better believe that Makita had M18 in their crosshairs when making this, so they very much both live in the same sort of category. We don't plan on only showing these two 3/4 inch tools head to head. The 2864 will also be going up against the 2767 half inch on each of its runs, so you get a perspective on the actual power increase that you would get out of buying one tool versus the other, and see if it's worth it for you. As usual for Makita, this new model is a chunker. Like, it looks meaty. At 8.6 pounds with a battery, it's heavy for sure, but not even as heavy as some of the half-inch high torques we've tested so far. And unlike the LXT, the 18 volt from Makita, this XGT 40 volt is actually rather short all set. It carries its weight sort of all over the hand, which means at 8.5 inches long, it's actually shorter than the 8.6 inch long lighter weight 2864 from Milwaukee we're showing today. Sort of a new phenomenon for Makita in that dimensional regard. We had plenty to say about Makita and the pros and cons of their LXT high torque in our episode 34, but we're going to get into that a little bit later. For now, we're anxious to get into the testing and show you what these tools can do. As usual on this channel, in head-to-heads, we test using the batteries these tools come with in kits sold by these brands, where that power spec is located. So for Makita, that's this BL4025 2.5 amp hour. And for M18, that's the XC 5.0, which make for these tools having the same watt hours in the packs respectively, but different voltages obviously. Considering the M18 3/4 inch uses the same brushless motor as the half inch, we expect it will be performing as intended and in our experience quite well. Here's the 3/4 inch 2864 up against the half inch M18 and our 5-second forward working torque test. 3/4 inch is shown here on the graph in red. That's 587 versus 572, with the 3/4 inch making gains across the board everywhere ultimately, but not really moving the needle a whole lot just yet. Let's see how the more expensive and higher voltage Makita 3/4 inch stacks up in this forward test. That's 588 versus 587, close enough to be really exact on this rig. But with the M18 showing gains on the curve with harder hits, it's no surprise on this channel, though, that the M18 high torque, regardless of dry size, absolutely puts it down and forward, especially in short bursts. Let's see how these tools stack up in reverse now, which, to be honest, if you're struggling for more power, is usually the direction you're working on. Here's a 3/4 inch from Milwaukee up against its half inch brother. So up to 100 to 120 foot-pound gains on the curve down low, but ultimately at the end, 742 versus 728. Nothing to be disappointed in, as the half inch nearly dominates this 10-second test to begin with. That power down low, which we like to theorize is dynamic torque, force per blow, is really good at rusted and seized stuff, so you should be seeing a noticeable difference on stuck stuff with this 3/4 inch. But if we're asking for noticeable differences, let's see if we really get some from the Makita for your $400 to $600. Here's its 10-second reverse max torque test. So yeah, sometimes we just don't know what to say in a situation like this, but that thing is a monster. 938, like really? 938, 26 to 27% more than an M18 3/4 inch. You better believe we ran this test multiple times. It did not hiccup once. If we're talking reverse only like this test specifically, that's more than the Milwaukee 1-inch made last week. How? What? You might be thinking that power comes at a cost to your body though, with the LXT 18 volt version of this high torque getting a record-setting 9.0 in our wrist breaking score. Makita doesn't really have a good track record for one-handed use on this channel, but this XGT, even on its most jarring runs, is more manageable actually, earning a 7.0 from us on our subjective wrist breaking score, making more beans with less bite than the 18 volt model by far, mainly just when things are super tight like 700, 800 plus, that's when it's experiencing this sort of heavy wrist wiggling action. In lower torque ranges, it's actually pretty minor. The 3/4 inch M18 actually sees an improvement over the half inch as well, despite being essentially the same tool inside. It gets a 6.5 this time. We think the smaller half inch anvil makes centering the vibration difficult compared to a wide footprint of a 3/4 inch inside of a socket like that. The tool overall is more pleasure to use than the half inch pretty much on everything. While we're busy picking our jaws up off the floor from that last run, let's just hop into this next best case scenario test. Both tools get a chance to make their best run in forward or reversed when we're testing cordless. For the half inch M18, that was forward, and for this 3/4 inch we're showing today, it was sort of a close or maybe a wash, but it did perform a little bit higher in reverse, so here's that. So the 3/4 inch makes 801 with gains throughout the curve, mirroring sort of all the testing that we performed on the day. Oddly enough, matching the same result as a 1/2 inch M18 when using an HD 12.0 battery, but definitely a cheaper and lighter weight route using this 3/4 inch version. Now let's see if the Green Monster can back up its badassery. Here's the Makita XGT's 15-second best case scenario test, which is obviously also in reverse, as it seems to frankly just love that. Holy crap. So yeah, we got a bit excited about this one and seeing that number there, 1,000, exactly 1,000 foot-pounds. The M18 is like an incremental bump over the 1/2 inch when you're using the 3/4. Noticeable for sure, but sort of in line with our theory that using the same brushless motor and changing out some things like the anvil is fine and good, but not like the bump you get from going from a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch air tool if you have the air supply for it. This new XGT from Makita sort of upsets that whole line of thinking though. Buying this tool over their LXT high torque is night and day, and here's a look at that. While the footprint of these tools is similar, the LXT is longer actually. Their power is just straight up on different planets. Let's get real here, the XGT is more of a 1-inch cordless power-wise when you consider the M18 2867 we just tested, and that had an XE 8.0 battery standard on it, and it isn't an old and dusty design from Milwaukee either. That 1-inch does blow this XGT out the water and forward, but this XGT spanks that in reverse, which is sort of our preferred flavor of power if we had to choose. So here's how that power comparison looks between the XGT and M18 1-inch best runs, with the M18 3/4 inch sort of on the chart as well. That 1-inch comes out the gate with a lot more dynamic torque, but after that really quite close, with actually the mid-game going to Makita. With this turn of events, I know this is a 3/4 inch episode, but we were interested in if the XE 6.0 battery from Milwaukee could move the needle in that M18 1-inch's favor, as we've had a lot of luck with higher discharge rate 30T cells in that 6.0 pack. Keep in mind this is not a run that will help it score on our ranking, as it does not come with one of these in the kit from Milwaukee, but considering the XE 6.0 costs the same or less than the 8.0, we were curious, so here's that. So 1,049 in total, and picked up gains throughout the curve, up 100 foot-pounds in spots. We're not saying that the XE 6.0 will always be better, as for some tools with lower or even higher draw than this one, that capacity may take over an advantage on long runs, but it seems to work for this one for sure. Now if you're saying, where's that HD 12.0 now, you guys, we're talking a 1-inch, 10.5 pound Milwaukee here, with a 6 or 8 amp hour pack up against Makita's 3/4 inch with a 2.5 amp hour. The performance of this Makita is crazy. Maybe you're as shocked as we are. Is this just all in our heads, or did Makita actually pull something off here without bragging about it? Let's see by heading over to the rank chart. We filled in the 1-inch already, which people who have gotten our rank list from t-shirt purchases may already have seen. Let's add these two 3/4 inches on what we're calling our large drive size list for now. The Milwaukee 1-inch, which we liked quite a lot, gets 441 points, but made most of those beans in forward, as we note. The other two are down here as we tally their points. Their power runs get turned into points here, so that's 59.94 and 100 for the Makita, and 59.74 and 80 for the Milwaukee, which would be pretty impressive if Makita didn't show up for work today. Next is their foot-pounds per inch. The rather short and super powerful XGT gets 117.7, the most out of any cordless we've ever tested, period. And the M18 gets 93.1, also quite high among cordless. When we're talking tightening, even in reverse, the Makita is playing a more conservative game than Milwaukee here, and not trying to boast. It gets 75% of their claim, while the M18 with their 200 foot-pound upgrade over the 1/2 inch gets dinged a little with 67 points. The XGT is far from cheap, but also far from 1-inch money for that power, and gets 37.6. The Milwaukee gets 40.2 for charging quite a bit less. That totals 483.3 points for the XGT and 413.3 for the M18, cementing Makita into really firmly first place. In our episodes featuring the past LXT 18-volt Makita high torque, we whined about a list of things, including its sad excuse for a hog ring, which even on this 3/4 inch still looks like some snipped chicken wire, and 3/4 inch sockets, which normally hold on quite tight, were very loose on this, even though it's a new model. But we also cited things like its size, and this 3/4 inch is shorter now, its wrist braking score, and that's lower now too, cheap looking old batteries with white buttons that instantly get dirty. These XGT ones look better, have gray buttons that don't get dirty easily, and their new power level lights are actually brighter. And we complained that they're not using 21700 cells yet, but they do in these XGT batteries when you use the 4.0 amp hour, which we're definitely wanting to try out, and that they charge you a lot of coin for a power increase. Now that is valid. Someone wanting to upgrade their LXT high torque is spending about $600, whereas someone wanting to upgrade their Milwaukee only needs to buy a bare tool for as low as $250 at times. But considering the performance today of this tool, we can't vouch for their other XGT tools being this night and day, but if a 2867-21 inch can cost $700 bare, this tool, which makes comparable power with a smaller drive size, we think can cost $600 with 2 batteries and a charger in our books. You can see why we want to add this one onto a shirt. Well done, Makita. We underestimated XGT, and we won't be doing it again. We'll be returning to 1/2 inch high torques to round out that series very soon, and thank you for watching.